Welcome to Confidential Remarks and Day 5 of Open Access Launch Week. Today's session also aligns with National Consumer Protection Week. I am Steve Colino. Today we're talking about understanding compensation. When someone sells a home, there are different costs involved in the process. One of those costs can be something called buyer agent compensation. Many people think they already understand this topic, but the truth is that there is often confusion. So today, our goal is simple. We want to explain it clearly so everyone understands their choices. By the end of this session, you should understand what compensation is, what options sellers have, and how those choices can affect a home sale. The first and most important thing to understand is this. A seller does not have to offer compensation to a buyer's agent. It is optional. This means the seller can decide to offer it, to negotiate it later, or not offer it at all. This choice can depend on the seller's goals, the local housing market, and how they want to sell their home. The important message is that sellers have options. Let's talk about what buyer agent compensation actually means. When someone buys a home, they often work with an agent who helps them find the house and handle the paperwork. Sometimes, the seller may choose to help pay for that agent's work. This can happen in different ways. It could be a percentage of the home price. It could be a set dollar amount. It could be negotiated during the deal, or the seller may not offer anything. The key idea is this. Compensation is just one part of the overall deal. Sellers usually have three main options. Option 1 is to offer compensation up front when the home is listed. Option 2 is to wait and negotiate it later if a buyer asks for it. Option 3 is to not offer compensation at all, meaning the buyer handles their own agent costs. None of these options are automatically right or wrong. The best choice depends on the seller's situation. In the first option, the seller decides to offer compensation when they first list their home. This can sometimes attract more buyers because it may help buyers who do not have a lot of extra cash available. It can also make the negotiation process a little simpler. But there is something to consider. If the seller offers compensation, it may increase the total cost of the sale, which could reduce the amount of money the seller takes home. So sellers need to think about how it affects their final numbers. The second option is to wait and negotiate compensation during the offer process. In this situation, the seller does not offer compensation right away. If a buyer wants it, they can include that request in their offer. This gives the seller more flexibility because they can review the full offer and decide what works best for them. However, negotiations might become a little more detailed because there are more things to discuss. The third option is for the seller to not offer compensation at all. In this case, the buyer is responsible for paying their own agent. This gives the seller the most control over their expenses. However, some buyers may need to change their offer if they also need to pay their agent. This does not mean buyers will not make offers. It simply means the deal might be structured differently. When selling a home, many parts of the deal work together. Sometimes a home might sell for a higher price with compensation included. Other times, it might sell for a lower price without it. What really matters most is the seller's final net proceeds. That means the amount of money the seller actually receives after everything is finished. So instead of focusing on one piece of the deal, it's better to look at the entire picture. Another important thing to think about is the market. For example, are homes selling quickly? Are there many homes available or very few? Are buyers competing with each other? Are other sellers offering compensation? In a strong seller's market, sellers may have more flexibility. In a competitive market, buyers may need more help with affordability. This is why understanding the local market is important. Even if compensation is not offered up front, it might still appear later in the offer. For example, a buyer might ask for a seller concession, adjust the purchase price, request compensation during negotiation. This is why sellers should review every part of the offer, not just the price. A good evaluation looks at the price, the terms, any concessions, and the final net proceeds. There are several common misunderstandings about compensation. Some people believe sellers must offer it, but that is not true. Some think offering compensation guarantees more money, but home value really depends on things like price, condition, and demand. Others believe that if compensation is not offered, buyers will not show interest. In reality, buyers may still submit offers. The structure of the deal might just look different. Again, what matters most is the seller's final outcome. Before making a decision, sellers should review a few things. They should compare how much they would earn with compensation, how much they would earn without it. They should also look at current market conditions, competing listings, buyer affordability, and their own timeline. The goal is to make a decision that fits their financial goals, not just follow what others expect. Open Access was created with one goal in mind: helping consumers understand their options clearly. Buying or selling a home is one of the biggest financial decisions people make. When consumers have clear information, they can make smarter choices. Compensation is negotiable. Strategies can change depending on the market, and every situation is different. At the end of the day, the decision belongs to the seller. You decide. This has been a special Confidential Remarks.